Yes, sir. Both.
Both, okay. And there's an alignment. Like it's a different allegiance than, for example, the state police or the
Correct.
or obviously the federal agents and whatnot. But your allegiance is the last line to protect the states, or your county would be you, but collectively that organization to protect against federal intrusions and whatnot. We kind of, am I right about that? Do I recall that conversation to that regard?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We did have that conversation. You have a good memory. Yeah, we did talk about that. The sheriff's office, not only in Michigan but across the country, it's unique. It's extremely unique that we serve direct to the people. I don't answer to the Board of Commissioners. I know that if any of my 11 Board of Commissioners are listening right now, they're cringing. But I don't answer to them. I answer only to 200,000 people. Well, I don't call people up every day and ask them what I should do, of course, but I get out and meet with people as often as possible, let them know the changes in the laws and how that's maybe going to affect people in our community. That's my job. But yes, we are the last line of defense for protecting the people of the state of Michigan, and for me specifically, the people of Saginaw County. And so I've had that question before about, well, what if the federal government comes in and will you defend us? I've sworn to uphold the Constitution of the state of Michigan and the Constitution of the United States of America, but I do have a huge responsibility, even though some people may not think it's that big of a deal. It really is. It is to me, and I won't speak for all sheriffs, but I would imagine that it is a big deal for all sheriffs, and it should be.
I think it's just such a fascinating topic, just from a theoretical or philosophical, with, what the oath is for, and as you're describing it. And I think that the context of what we were talking about is because, various points in history, this becomes a discussion, and who's going to protect the state citizens. I mean, we could think of other points of history when federal government was infringing on, and it's different people are now claiming states' rights, arguably, different groups are clinging to it, and different groups are against states' rights, oddly, at various times, that politically didn't align themselves. But I just think it's a fascinating debate nonetheless. I mean, is this something like, tell me where do you find, I'm just curious, I mean, the charter or the oath that you speak of is in the sheriff's oath, or is it something that's ingrained in the spirit of the state sheriff's organization or the national organization? Like, where do you draw that commitment from?
Well, it is, we take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the state of Michigan, and as a constitutional officer, that's first and foremost. But sheriff, the role of sheriff, a lot of people think of the Old West in the United States of America, but the sheriff or sheriff actually is a term that is derived and handed down from England. And so, the peacekeeper, we have this, at least a lot of people that I talk to have a vision of a sheriff. I can still picture, James Garner in Support Your Local Sheriff. I think he was Support Your Local Gunfighter first, but then a movie, Support Your Local Sheriff. And, it was an interesting take on the role of sheriff, and it's been portrayed in movies and in Hollywood and in biographies throughout history. But ultimately the goal of the sheriff and the role of the sheriff is to protect the people of the county that he or she serves. And we do that through enforcing laws that are enacted by the legislature. So we do have a role, and we do speak to our legislators, and they do speak to us. And quite frankly, there are times when state senators and state reps will call me and ask me what I think about a particular bill that they may have drafted or that someone else has drafted and they have to vote on. And that's refreshing that they would at least ask my opinion. But it really, just depends on the legislator if they want to ask or not. They don't have to. And really, we have some input, but we don't have all-knowing input. Ultimately, we know our role, and that is to enforce the laws. And as they are handed down, if we have any influence at all, if people come to us and say, boy, we just really don't like this, and as you said, there are some counties in Michigan that did not pass Proposal 1, they probably went to their sheriffs and said, hey, speak out against this. We need you to protect us. And so they did.
I think you said there's 200,000 people in Saginaw with 27 cities?
Actually, 200,000 residents at 27 townships,
okay.
3 cities, and 5 villages. So that's quite a few different municipalities that are in the jurisdiction of the sheriff's office.
And you mentioned that only one of them doesn't have their own local police force.
Oh, no, only one of them consulted me.
Okay. No, okay, but you
20.
Oh, go ahead. I'm curious to those statistics.
21 have. Yeah, 21 of the townships have no local law enforcement except the sheriff's office or maybe the state police if they're coming through the county. They don't have a post in Saginaw County anymore, but they do slide down from Bay County. So 21 townships out of 27 are patrolled primarily by the sheriff's office, and then we provide a support service for the rest of the townships who may have part-time or full-time that get busy and they need help. And the cities as well that have their own police protection. Sometimes the city, even the city of Saginaw, they get overwhelmed with calls and they ask for help. And even if they don't ask, we'll go in there and help out if we can. And but our responsibility is primarily to those who don't have first, and then those who do have that need help second.
I'm just wondering, I know that this must be a trend. I mean, first of all, was there a time when you were not patrolling that many cities and they had local police forces and they've been kind of budgeted out by unforeseen circumstances, or was that the original design?
Well, it depends on how far back you go. 1837 was when the sheriff's office originated in Saginaw County, and I'm the 40th sheriff of Saginaw County, so that's all you had back then. And for 45 years or more, that's all there was in Saginaw County until the lumber era. And Saginaw was a big lumbering town back in the late 1800s, and the city of Saginaw had a lot of bars and restaurants and things downtown, and the lumbermen would come from the river, and they wanted the sheriff, and the sheriff had to get there by horseback in 800 square miles, and probably wasn't as quick to respond to calls, so they formed their own police department.
Right.
And
So
then
right.
1970.
So
yeah,
right as these cities began to grow,
the state police came along.
Right. But I'm saying, but has there been a trend to expand? I imagine at some point in time, cities started having local police departments, more and more and more of them. Are they? Is the which was there more recently? More police departments locally, or less? I guess is better.
Well, less. Less. Some have gone out of business, if you will, and have contracted with us. Others hang on and ask for help. And the current governor we have, Governor Schneider, posted many state troopers in the city of Saginaw, as well as the city of Flint, to help out those 2 cities that had some issues with keeping patrols on the streets and lost, through financial troubles, lost quite a bit of their police forces. So even though they exist, they don't exist in the same way they existed just even 10 or 15 years ago. So we're seeing a shift, if that's your question, we're seeing a shift away from local municipalities growing. They're either stagnant or reducing.
Yeah, I could almost see, and I don't know, I mean, I'm aware that, throughout the states, different cities and townships are many financially strapped. They have a tough time, funding police departments and whatnot, and millages and voting is, one of the paths and whatever. So I could understand why, they can't go without a police department. They need something, just in case. Some may need more than others. Some really need their own, but they can't. But I'm just wondering if it's not going to be a trend where you would get better budgeting, or the budget to be able to really, police the entire county as a force. You maybe have local offices, but it's one particular agency per se, or one particular department. And if that's not something that is a reflection just of, not just, it's necessary because of budgeting, or maybe because of, do you think that, is that a direction things would go if there was fewer arrests, let's say, move outside of Saginaw, because I know Saginaw's a unique county. It may be different. But if you take a more neutral, in terms of uniqueness, where there's 100,000 people or, not as many cities, but still has a certain number of arrests of marijuana or whatnot. They're still struggling in a few towns or whatnot. Do you think like a direction that goes, look, if we stop marijuana arrests, there's a lot of resources in some of the local police departments, and we can take on the responsibility of all the other stuff through one department. What's the pros and cons of it, I guess, is the better question. You know what I mean? I'm sure it's debated. What's the pros and cons there?
Oh, well, but that's a great question. I'll start with just several years ago, actually not that many, maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago, the city of Saginaw was experiencing some issues. Before the state police were directed to come in and assist, the city leaders wanted me to take over the police department in the city of Saginaw and basically make what would appear to be like a metro police agency, if you will, even though it may not have been called that. I said no at the time because I didn't want to break the union of the city police department. I wanted to work with the union. I told the city leaders dragging 65 police officers kicking and screaming into a bargaining agreement that's going to slash their benefits and cut their pay will not serve the public in the way that I think the public needs it to be protected and served. So I ultimately said no. But with what you're saying, is there a way for us to free up resources? Yes. Anytime we look, I just went to a recent retiree meeting at the UAW Local 699, the former Saginaw Steering Gear, which is now next here. But the retirees have a huge group there that meets once a month, and I like to stop by to say hi. So I swung by there this past Tuesday and said hi, about 450 people. And the biggest concerns that they had were not about Proposition 1 and the outcome that we already knew. Their biggest concern was texting and driving and people that were maybe going to break into their houses. And so I volunteered to bring my screw gun and 4-inch screws and help secure their doors. A little trick I learned down in Florida where you can put the screws in where your deadbolt goes into your door jamb, and the little metal piece that holds that in place and receives the deadbolt, it usually comes with 1/4-inch or 1/2-inch screws. If you put 3 or 4-inch screws in, it goes in and goes right into the 2x4 on the other side of it, and it helps if somebody wants to break into your house, and that's their biggest fear. So I said, I'll bring my screw gun and my screws over, and I'll take care of anybody that calls my office. So that's their concern. So there wasn't anybody actually out of that 450 to 500 people that said that they were concerned about Prop 1. So every community is different.
Do you think there's enough policing going on and the resources are in the right direction? If you had your magic wand, would you keep the status quo? I know you can speak mostly, you're obviously about Saginaw, but say no one cares if you badmouth them right now. Just your view, because you have a unique approach to it, I will say. Yeah. I don't think everyone, or even talks about it like you do. So when you look at the other places, it may be political, it may be reasons, but do you think we need to look at policing and sheriffing in general differently? Do you think we're really doing it the best that we can?
Oh, there's always room for improvement, and thank you for the comment there. I appreciate it. One thing I will say, when we talk about staffing levels, we have a 50-year-old jail. It's been renovated a couple of times. It was never intended to house 513 inmates. It was meant to house 218, I believe, at the time. And anyways, we are now in the process of building a new jail. My commissioners wanted me to ask for a tax increase, which I said no to. And they said, well, then say goodbye to your jail. And I said, no, I have another plan. If we build a jail that is smarter, if we build a design that is smarter, I should say, the design must be better than the current design. Instead of linear, we must have more of a hub and spoke, if you will. Fewer personnel needed to make sure we keep an eye on the same amount of prisoners, and then I can reduce my staff by about 20 and use that savings to pay for the 30-year bond for a $36 million project. And that's what we're doing. So can we do that on the outside of those walls as we're patrolling our communities? Of course. We have to be smarter on how we do things. We must be intuitive. We must be in tune with the public that we serve. And if the public we serve wants us to protect them when they're on the roads, we've had I don't know, 6 people killed in the last 2 weeks in Saginaw County due to traffic crashes. That's quite a few people that have been killed, and some of it is through reckless behavior. Some of it is through